Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's Richie from Boston. With all the mass shootings, more than one happening every single day, and watching storms being conjured up and driven up the coast, you need to prepare. I can't say it any more simply than that. And I'm not just saying it, I do it. Whether I'm on the road, in my vehicle, out in the woods, at home, filtering my water to get rid of that pesky fluoride that they insert into all of America's water supply. Everything you need to prepare for yourself and your family is on this website. They don't give out your information. Everything's made, processed, and shipped from the United States. Links will be in the description. Okay, this is about the 5th time I've tried to make this video. What's up, YouTube? It's Richie from Boston. Today is the 7th of September, 2019. Take a look at this. Mass shootings in the United States in 2019. This is according to CBS News. The number of mass shootings across the U.S. thus far in 2019 has outpaced the number of days in the year, according to a gun violence blah, blah, blah. Let's go down here to ABC News. 4 days ago. The total number of deadly shootings in the United States in 2019 comes out to an average of 1 every 13 days. Mass shootings, mass shootings, mass shootings, mass shootings. That's all they talk about is mass shootings. Well before any of this stuff came to fruition, well before the United States started going in the steady downward spiral down the world stage drain that it's going now and nobody seems to be paying attention, we were warned about this. We were warned about this by this one man, a guy called Milton William Cooper, or Bill Cooper for short. Bill Cooper was an American patriot. Bill Cooper was a man who has been slandered, misquoted, and tried to make look like a government troll, a government agent. The only problem with all this is Bill Cooper told people things well before they happened, and then they happened almost identically to what Bill Cooper told them. And then, on the 5th of November, 2001, not too long after 9/11, Bill Cooper was shot dead. I'm going to show you some things that Bill Cooper talked about. One of the main things that Bill Cooper did before anybody else ever did was exposed Alex Jones for the scumbag, liar, New World Order operative that he is. Millions of people fell for this, and it happens. When you go from being asleep to waking up, finding InfoWars and listening to Alex Jones seems like a good idea. But as you progress in your awakening as a woke person, as a truther, you discover that Alex Jones is telling you, well, about 80% truth, and then about 20% lies. And that 20% is exactly what undid the truth community almost entirely. They're turning the frogs gay, globalist, and the New World Order, and Kissinger, and blah, blah, blah. But then on the other hand, he would say things like, Jews don't run Hollywood, and Jews don't run, or Israel doesn't run the Federal Reserve. The Muslim Brotherhood runs the Federal Reserve. And the Chinacons run Hollywood. Well, that's complete and total bullshit, but that's what his job was. Alex Jones was never flipped. He was put in place to become the absolute biggest channel on YouTube in that particular genre, and then he steered everybody down the wrong path, including with Donald Trump. And a lot of people fell for it, and their egos won't let them walk away. Alex Jones has tried to convince everybody that he never said anything about Sandy Hook and that he was under a form of psychosis and that most of his listeners were too. Well, my listeners aren't under a form of psychosis, and neither am I. I saw Alex Jones for what he is years ago, but Bill Cooper saw Alex Jones for what he is decades ago.
Sometimes people claim they've been hurt and they haven't been. So you have to look at the agenda behind things. And I myself have, almost had like a form of psychosis back in the past where I basically thought everything was staged. I'm now learning a lot of times things aren't staged.
Yeah. This is all staged. Alex Jones was pulling the plug on his own YouTube channel and his websites and everything else. He claimed he got thrown off of YouTube. Yet when he goes on with Joe Rogan, They're enjoying tens of millions of views, no problem. Doesn't seem like he's thrown off YouTube at all. But on this, I will digress. For those of you that don't know, here's a little bit about Bill Cooper.
The largest intelligence apparatus in the world, with the biggest budget in the history of the world, has been looking for Osama bin Laden for years and years and years, and can't find him. Some doofus jerk-off reporter with a camera crew waltzes right into his hideout and interviews him. So why do all these fools believe this charade? That a CNN reporter and his little camera crew can do with all the money and all the assets and all the eavesdropping and all the intelligence and all the satellites and all the undercover operatives in the world can never do. It's because they're not trying. They don't want to. Osama bin Laden is their creation, and he is serving them well. I mean, is this some kind of incredible joke that people are so stupid they fall for this? And now we're being bombarded with messages that Osama bin Laden is planning to attack the United States of America and Israel. Let me tell you something. If he's an enemy of Israel and the Mossad can't find him, then this thing is the biggest joke that you ever heard of in your life. And I'm telling you, be prepared for a major attack. But it won't be Osama bin Laden. It will be those behind the New World Order who once again want to take the guns and the freedom away from the American people, because we're the only ones left in the world who can oppose the destruction of freedom in the world and the implementation of a one-world totalitarian socialist government, and that is the goal. And whatever is going to happen that they're going to blame on Osama bin Laden, don't you even believe it. Another social engineering project to change the minds and the attitudes and the beliefs of the people of the world, and especially the United States, to bring about one world socialist totalitarian government. I wonder what Osama bin Laden's targets are supposed to be. And if they don't, if this doesn't materialize in the next 2 or 3 weeks, it will eventually materialize, because they haven't succeeded in getting the guns out of the hands of the American people, nor have they succeeded in taking our freedoms away. In fact, there's been a great awakening in this country and a big backlash against these Marxist, communist, puke-faced, lying, subversive, Nazi, jackbooted Gestapo thugs that is gaining momentum. And so I can tell you with a certainty, they must do something terrible in order to stop this backlash and regain the sympathy of the mass herds of sheeple out there. And supposedly, we're not the only nation searching for Osama bin Laden. So the vast economic resources, the vast technological resources, the vast personnel resources, the vast networks and intricate web spun over all these years by the CIA, the FBI, and the NSA can't find Osama bin Laden, but CNN can? Bullshit. What a crying shame. How in the world could this country of all nations breed such a dumbed down, unthinking, illiterate, uneducated, stupid, ignorant population?
So Bill Cooper not only exposed Alex Jones decades before anybody else did, or at least 10, 20 years before anybody else did, and he was totally right. He not only completely exposed the Central Intelligence Agency, Mossad, and everyone else who was going to be behind the World Trade Center's attack, and then blame it on Osama bin Laden. But he also wrote a book called Behold a Pale Horse, and this is an excerpt from chapter 12, page 225, that many of you know well. The government encouraged the manufacture and importation of military firearms for the criminals to use. This is intended to foster a feeling of insecurity, which would lead to the American people to voluntarily disarm themselves by passing laws against firearms. Using drugs and hypnosis on mental patients in a process called Orion, the CIA inculcated the desire in these people to open fire on schoolyards and thus inflame the anti-gun lobby. This plan is well underway and so far is working perfectly. The middle class is begging the government to do away with the Second Amendment. In the times that we're living in right now, I have never seen so many people ignorantly giving away their ability to have the Second, even the First Amendment. This is a sad state of affairs right here. And as a matter of fact, when Bill wrote this and these are totally different because all the search results are completely censored. All the people on the internet are completely censored. Bill Cooper saw this coming. And what happened to Bill Cooper? Well, here's the story. A lot of people like to call him an agent, somebody that was in place. That's just ridiculous, and that's just more ignorance from fluoridation, medication, genetically modified foods, and programming through television, music, and movies. I talk about this all the time, and it stands to reason. It was not even close to as bad as it was back then when Bill wrote this, but nowadays, it's absolutely incredible. But for those that think he was an agent, you think it's, you think they would kill an agent the way they did? Because they didn't. He talked about this, and then things like this popped up, and nobody cared. Do you see what I'm saying?
Was unmarked. No one was in uniforms. They did not identify themselves. That was it. They said that in their briefings the very next day. They were parked here. They intentionally had a vehicle with an incredibly loud stereo system, and they made a lot of noise themselves, hooting and hollering. Bill came down and told them, this is based on the law enforcement people that told me this, that were involved that night. Bill told them if they didn't leave, he was calling the police, and they shunned him on. So he then turned around to go back to his home up there and call the police. Now, at that point, they were here, and he just basically turned right there, just out on this lot a little bit, and went on back. Right here out of this juniper was a spot I was told by law enforcement officials that the first deputy came out right at Bill's truck, because he was cruising along slow, watching them more than likely in his rearview mirror, me knowing him very well, to make sure they didn't follow him back over there. He came out, and this is the point where Bill knocked him off sheerly with his arm, not ran over anything. That guy basically just landed on his butt because Bill hit the gas. So he made this little curve here, and this is where he stopped. At this point, according to law enforcement officials, from their briefing, and then plus people on site right then, when he stopped, one more person approached the vehicle, but not running. And that's when he did the open hands thing and a sign of, like surrender or whatever. Here's where he hit up on the bank, just trying to avoid the vehicle that then came shooting up here, full bore, full speed, came ripping up the hill. So obviously the people at the end had communications with people down there on the road. Must have verified that Bill had turned around, coming back to his house. So they came zooming up here in a vehicle. He's avoiding them. He comes up on this bank. It was testified as that by the law enforcement reports, as well as the evidence on his vehicle that is what happened. The exhaust system was tore off the bottom. He then proceeded right there past the small elms and the driveway, to the front of his yard. I was told by the law enforcement officials that were on site and ones that had to come up afterwards and get a briefing so they knew what went on roughly, because public was obviously going to be coming to try to come up here, and news crews and all whatnot. They had put out that Bill is not to be let back in that house alive. It was premeditated. It was put out, Bill will not be allowed back in alive. Right here at Bill's home is where he pulled up. His front of this vehicle would be towards me. The other vehicle was parked with the front towards the other end of the street. Bill ran around the back of his vehicle, which would be towards the driveway. He then proceeded across his yard. This is when the shooting began, according to their reports. The vehicle that was parked here besides his truck, which was pointed that way, he had bought for Jessica, his daughter, and then she didn't want it, so it was just sitting here. Sheriff Goldsmith ran around the back of it, which would be towards me, and got on this street side to use the vehicle as protection. At that point, Bill is approximately halfway in the yard and still running with his back towards him. They claim at that point he began shooting, which was with his right arm just thrown backward, haphazardly pulling the trigger of a .38 snub-nose Smith & Wesson. From where we're standing would be essentially the angle that Goldsmith would have been standing, but closer. Marina's would have been by the 58 Chevy, which would be equivalent to that truck, but up all the way to the wall. Next to that end post of the front porch. Bill was supposedly shooting backwards like this, which would be back towards the street in reality, that direction. When he hit Marina's, that angle does not work at all. Plus, the bullet hole in the glass of the 58 Chevy indicates a bullet path of approximately this direction through the driver's roll-down window and out the passenger corner of the windshield, indicating clearly it went towards the dome in town, which is the high school field for playing during the winter. At that point, Goldsmith opened fire, hitting Bill several times. Bill fell down right where the porch would start, and the dirt would meet the concrete sidewalk. Next to the planter, you can just slightly see raised on this side, favoring me from the front door. That's where he fell. And according to them, they quit shooting, and he was dead.
And that's what happens in America when a patriot stands up and warns people of something impending that's going to come. And then only months later, the exact thing that Bill warned about came to fruition. And what they did with him is they killed him and made him look like, to the sheeple, a bad guy. Stories like this remind me of people like Bob Lazar, who claims that he worked at Area 51 and he saw UFOs and blah, 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 and the government just didn't know what to do with him. They know exactly what to do with them. They kill them. That's all there is to it. They kill them, make them look like the bad guy, and then they push forward in the news stories. We've seen it numerous times with Bill Cooper.
When Michael Hastings died suddenly last month, our generation lost...
Michael Hastings. Michael Hastings was about to expose some CIA shot callers, and they killed him, much like Bill Cooper. The director of Gray State, David Crowley, his wife, and his 5-year-old daughter were all killed because they were about to expose the police state and everything else that was going to be brought down upon the heads of Americans. And people buy it. People believe that Gray State was finished, and there's some stupid documentary on YouTube that is not Gray State. It was never, ever finished. Long story short, people that get in the way of any of these plans whatsoever at all are killed. Bill Cooper was one of them. Michael Hastings was one of them. David Crowley was one of them. But Bob Lazar wasn't. But again, let me digress. Let's stay on the story point here. All these shootings, no matter what the news outlet, no matter what the numbers are, no matter what, it's all they're talking about. To the point where the president that was selected to be the president of the Corporation of America, who was pushed by this guy, who not only helped get Trump elected or selected or whatever, this guy single-handedly not only brought many people simply looking for truth down the wrong path, he also got many people that were actually really good at researching to stop believing everything they were saying and fall for Donald Trump. And now what is Donald Trump bringing us all? The red flag laws, so people can turn in their loved ones if they don't like them. We live in a time of trolling, keyboard warriors like we have never seen before. This law will be an absolute melee. This guy was brought in by this guy. We were warned about this guy by this guy. This guy told us all about the mass shootings that were going to be coming. This guy warned us about 9/11, Osama bin Laden, and they killed him for it. So if somebody starts telling you that Bill Cooper was this, that, and the other, Bill Cooper died for what he believed in, just like I'm willing to, just like many others should be willing to, because the day that comes where they're going to look at us all like we're Bill Coopers, you're going to have to make a decision. Here's an article from Rolling Stone from not all too long ago, and they call him the granddaddy of the American conspiracy theorist. Before QAnon, which is just another Alex Jones type event, before all of this, Milton William Cooper predicted all of this stuff. I'm going to leave links to everything so you can look at all of this for exactly what it is. Next time somebody badmouths this person, block them. Walk away from them. Because he told us about way too many things. Mainly mass shootings, Alex Jones, and of course, the Twin Towers. And what happened to him for it? Well, they killed him. Sadly, in America, that's the benchmark. When anybody's bringing forth real information, they will either villainize them or they will silence them. When somebody's lying and working for the government for 30 years, well, that should tell you everything.
Element 115.
Element 115 is a super heavy element. It's something that we only just recently synthesized. We only made 4 atoms of it. But the craft uses larger quantities of it, 223-gram little triangles of it. But it's a unique element. When it's exposed to radiation, it produces its own gravitational field.
Strangely enough, 2 weeks before Bob Lazar came out with his story about Element 115, so didn't Popular Mechanics. And if anything he were saying were true, Bob Lazar would be dead. And instead, he's on every television show, he's on Netflix, he's being hyped by this absolute, total, complete liar. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm sorry, it wasn't Popular Science, it was Scientific America that told everybody about Element 115. Coincidentally, 2 weeks before Bob did. Nothing to see here, no big deal. It's all a lie. Bill Cooper was not.
115. In 1989, Scientific America did a story on the possibilities of creating Element 115. There's probably a good chance Bob was interested in this magazine. That story was published in May of that year, just 2 weeks before Bob came forward with his amazing story.
Long story short here, anybody that comes forward and tells the real truth about what's really happening to the United States through shadow governments, Mossad operatives, CIA guys, and all sorts of black budget projects, disarming America, discrediting patriots, and holding up fake truthers, fake whistleblowers for all the world to see. Richie from Boston, Bill Cooper was an American hero, and many of us are going to end up going out the same way. Be ready or don't. I'm out.